and welcome to June 25th in 2025. Nice little balance of the numbers there, 250625. And Phoenix Business Exchange, East End Edition. You know what? If you need to grow your business, if you need to expand your horizons, reach out to new contacts, you're tired of your own space, come inside the Phoenix space because we are dealing. If you're a small medium business, what a perfect way to share the information and get around. And you know what? And I'm going to show you a bit more how to follow that path, that rabbit down the rabbit hole. That actually isn't a rabbit hole. It's actually some opportunities. So if you go to the Phoenix website, pbex.ca, you'll find how to get in here and visit us. Come in for a couple runs. And we'll start off with one of the features we have. We have a member of the week. And here, this is Norm Boye. So he does the honeydew list. And what is that all about? That means stuff, you don't want to do it, but your significant other is saying, you should get it done. And instead of having it look like a 2-year project that takes maybe 30 minutes, or you just don't have the expertise, reach out to Norm, and he can get you anything from windows that are super reflective to, let's fix that wall, make it pretty again. And to get into the Phoenix website, oh, by the way, Norm's e-card, click here, you'll find him, and click here to hear Norm talk about glass and other services he provides. To get in here, today is Wednesday morning, 8 to 9 Eastern Standard Time. Click here. It's the Zoom links in there. We have a Monday morning group, that's Bell's Corners, and a Thursday morning group, the South End, all 8 to 9 Eastern. This week, though, it is a special. They are in person. They're meeting at 7:30, not on Zoom. You can click the Zoom, but you won't be able to get any of Marlon's breakfast, and then won't have that coffee. July 2nd, July 2nd, we have an after hours group. That's Tuesday evening at 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. And the idea behind that is for members, if you need someone, just a touch point to stay accountable to yourself. You kind of tell Penny Lee, she hosts the group, Penny Lee Prevo, and she will basically keep track. What are you doing? And it's not so much to chagrin you. It's more like, it just gives you a milestone, a line in the sand. Much like, when Wendy sells a house, there's always a date. There's always a reason, there's always a time that you got to be done by. Or Sam, probably when you're changing tires, like winter tires should have been already off your car. And if they're not, you have a loss of the rubber. East Trade Winds. We meet every Tuesday, 8 to 9. Next week is an exception because next week is July 1. You can show up. We're just taking a hiatus for one day for that 1 week, only for the fact it's Canada Day. And tuning in with Tony, free meditation class on June 27th. That's Friday afternoon at 1:30 p.m. A great place to take off the edge from the week, maybe the month, or that morning. Who knows? But 1:30 p.m. You just come in and you just come really relaxed. Penny Lee Prevo also has another event that's ongoing. It's the Movement is Medicine with NIA classes. And so if you're leading a sedentary lifestyle, or you need to start stretching, or you've come out of an accident recovery, but you need to move your body around, that's a great class. She'll have your wrists flicking and your knees snapping and all that type of thing, but in a healthy way. And so what else we got here? South End Group, we already, Friends Friday Potluck. All right, that's July 11th at 6:30 p.m. That's not a Zoom, that's in person, bring food. Penley is the host, and she's in the East End of Ottawa. South End Group, again, just a reminder, June 26th, and that is tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. at the River Lounge. You hear someone talking today and you say, listen, I want to know more about that person. Like our speaker today, who'll be doing his presentation, Eric Senego. He's going to tell you something like, hey, I didn't know that. I want to know more. Well, then, that's how you find one of the ways to find Eric. If you look over my shoulder, you see the QR code. It's a quick and easy way to, any of us will have our own QR code and our own link. It's a quick and easy way to get a phone number, an email address, whatever the preferred contact method is, plus some other information. Canada Food Cupboard is the charity of choice for the September 4th golf tournament. And just to show you, and I'm going to swing back to the e-cards again, 2,092 hits on the e-card year to date for this year. And what that means, there's been 2,092 times someone has reached through one of the links to connect with one of our members. Again, another very useful tool, and it's part of your Phoenix membership. We've done over $4.9 million worth of business since 2016 between members, not referrals from the outside in, but just between members. Year to date, that number is $121,940. And with all that good information, and I'm going to hit the stop share, I'm going to swing over some educational minute from Mr. Sam Storos, coming to you live. Where are you at, Sam? What beach are you
Yes.
at? Yeah,
Live from
yeah,
Port Stanley, Ontario. Right,
yeah, yeah.
looking at Lake
Good.
Erie right out in front of our front window here. Well, I have been talking about, and I will be talking about turbocharged engines in my next presentation. But I want to pass along some information in regards to that because it's becoming more and more common with cars. You do have to take extra precautions when it comes to those vehicles. Salesmen, don't expect the salesman to tell you that. They'll tell you all the good things about them, that good gas mileage and you have horsepower when you need it with a small engine. But the reality is they do require extra attention. And this time of year, especially, it's the oil. And the reason why is because the oil in the engine that lubricates the engine also lubricates the turbocharger. And they have, well, they spin up to around 200,000 RPM. And that little bearing that keeps those things intact gets very hot if you shut the car off quickly after you've been driving it on hot days like we're having right now, especially in traffic, and you just turn that car off. I'll be talking more in depth on that, and I'll have a presentation, I have a video on it. But if you have or you know someone that does, make sure that their oil in their engine is fairly new. Do not run old oil, getting over 10,000 kilometers in engine with a turbocharger because you're asking for that bearing to go. And when they go, well, you're looking at a small couple $1,000 bill to get them fixed or have them replaced. You can run without the turbocharger, which actually I have a neighbor that's doing that now. But you don't get very much horsepower out of those small engines then. So be aware that those things can happen. Change your oil, regularly and even early if you own a turbocharged engine. That's it for me. Back to you, Bernie.
Sam, thank you so much. And we are live on LinkedIn, and that is the link to the LinkedIn page. Feel free to put contact information in that space and share your knowledge, share your contacts. And the fickle finger of fate is going to start off with Susan because she's got a beaming smile. And Susan, up to you, and then we'll go to Redmond. Go ahead, Susan.
Thank you so much, Bernie. Good morning, everyone. My name is Susan McGarry. I'm with a company called Pure Trim. They carry about 15 products that are outsourced from the Mediterranean. They're not food graded, but pharmaceutical graded. And the reason for that is there's a lot more strict qualifications when it comes to ingredients. So that's a good thing to note. If you know anyone that's looking to overcome joint muscle pain, digestive concerns, a liver cleanse, a parasite cleanse, or just looking for more energy, have them reach out to me. Also, a little health tip to top things off, don't forget to drink lots of water. Don't wait till you're thirsty. That means you're really dehydrated. And a great way to test yourself is just take the palm of your hand, lift up, and if it bounces back really quickly, it means you're dehydrated. Thank you so much. Back to you, Bernie.
Susan, any BAMs or referrals in the last?
No, but I'll ongoing business with Tony and business with Redmond.
Excellent, excellent. And next quick item, it's Ad Hive. It's a collab working space. They rent office space by the hour and so forth, but it's also a good place just to grab a bite to eat or meet. Redmond and then Wendy. Go ahead, Redmond.
Oh, thanks, Eric. Hi, everyone. Reverend O'Brien of Odette Regan Valores Professional Corporation. Our firm, as you know, we practice in a variety of areas, some civil litigation, real estate law, so representing or assisting people as the lawyer on a purchase or sale of a residential property. But my focus is on family law and also on wills and estates. And just recently, just talk a little bit about that. Just helping somebody with a will, doing a new will, where just to show that we're able to be adaptable to just like all businesses to people's needs. Like I know maybe some of us might go to a client's house or have them come over, or you meet them at their place of work. So this person's living in a retirement residence. So it's just more challenging for her to come down to the office. So we're able to just go over there to her residence. And also just having a witness was kind of challenging for her to have a witness because she's new to Ottawa. So that was kind of a different situation for me, just having to try to be adaptable to this client's needs. Um, and it's something that we'll continue to do. So bringing a witness along to help out rather than saying, "Oh, can you try to find somebody in this new residence where you are to be a witness to the signing of your will?" So yeah, so we try to be adaptable to our clients' needs in family law as well. So I had a BAM with Jacqueline Richards as well. That was great to learn more about her business and likewise. So at Redound Lawyers Professional Corporation, protecting your rights is our priority.
Redmond, thank you so much. And so next quick prompt, if you know someone that is office supply retail, it could be Staples, it could be whatever, it could be a mom and pop shop. Have them reach in because you know what? We still need stuff, although we're heavily electronic, there's still need for paper. Probably Eric can even talk to you about that a little more. And Wendy, over to you, and then Sam.
Good morning, everyone. Wendy Chung, real estate broker with Century 21 Synergy. I provide solutions and directions to buyers and sellers to help them reach a successful conclusion to their housing situation. So recently I'm working with a lot of people who are welcoming a senior parent into their home. So their current residence is not suitable to welcome in a senior. So I'm working with a lot of families who are looking for a multi-generational home. So if you know of anyone that is selling a multi-generational home anywhere in the city, I would love to connect with them because there's a great need for that these days. I also wanted to mention, shout out to Susan McGarry, your Pure Garden product. I have a starter that works at the golf course that I'm a member at, and he had very severe dry skin and all of that. So I gave him a bottle of the Pure Trim, and he was very grateful. And in a very short period of time, he was seeing a difference because he told me nothing else is working. And I said, this is a pure product. There's no chemicals in it. It's all natural. So I just want to give a shout out to Susan McGarry. Ongoing business with Susan Epps with Melaleuca, and I tried to give Redmond a referral to a former member of Phoenix who is having a challenge with a situation of I guess a will, or anyway, just disposing of real estate property in that respect. I also want to ask everyone if they could say a prayer to my cat. My cat, who's turning 16 in September, she stopped eating on Friday, so it's day 6 now since she hasn't been eating. She is pretty much skin and bones, and she's not moving. She's not even drinking much water anymore, so her time is getting near. So please, thank you.
I feel for you, Wendy. I know that process. So a quick note: the golf tournament's coming up on September 4th at 2:30 in the afternoon. Best ball. If you're a golfer, great. If you're not a golfer, still great. And best ball means whoever hits it the furthest, that's what we're going to go after. So roll on in. Sam, what's going on, man?
Thank you, Bernie. Sam Stores Connected Cars here. Happy Wednesday to everyone. Let's see here. Well, I do dash cameras. That's my main thing, but I also do minor repairs, oil changes, brake jobs, things like that. And I have a guy called me while I'm actually here in Port Stanley, sent me a copy of the estimate that he received from a local dealer in town. Took his wife's CRV in there to get looked at. And this car is, well, it's not new. Let's put it that way. It's at least 10 years old. And lo and behold, the dealership gave them a quote of $7,200 to do the repairs to the car. So I don't understand why people do that when the car's not even worth $7,000. They do it. He sent it to me. And what I thought that would be the right thing to do, if I'm giving, and what I do for customers, it's I give them estimate, also tell them what are the priorities. If there's lots of work to be done, I give them the priorities that need to be done quickly. And when I looked at it right away, they talked about an axle shaft that was in trouble. So I told them that's the main thing you need done. Yes, you need some exhaust work and things like that, but that the axle breaks on the highway or on the road. You're looking at an instant tow job because you're not going to go anywhere, and it could actually cause an accident. So I gave him that advice. So when I get back to town, I'm going to be looking at that vehicle to make sure that that exactly is what needs to be done, and getting that done for him. Usually that job is around the $500 range. So if your let's say service company gives you a bill that's worth more than the car is worth, you might want to look somewhere else because they're not paying attention to really what's the priority of the car at that point. That's it for me, Sam Sturz. Oh yes, Bams wise. Let's see, Rael. I'm going to be dealing with Rael and getting that computer robot or bot or whatever on my website. I'm going to be getting that on. Redmond, I sent a will referral to him. And let's see here. Well, I was supposed to play pickleball this week, but my cousin, he got injured playing baseball, so I didn't play pickleball. And instead, we played beach bocce here, and I have to say I managed to win. That's it for me. Back to you.
Oh, Sam, that's good. I saw a little thing on Instagram about playing pickleball, and apparently you don't run to your partner who's about to hit the ball and face him as he's going smack like this. And apparently it's a palm face moment. East Trade Wins. The Zoom link to register for after July 1st is in the chat. Jacqueline, speaking of East Trade Winds, thank you for presenting yesterday. Awesome job. Go ahead, Jacqueline.
I so appreciate opportunities. I think all of us appreciate when we can take that long, deep breath, lift our shoulders, take them back, drop them down, and appreciate we're going to speak to a lot of people we didn't know could be there. And it doesn't really matter what city, what province, what country they're in. People want to hear your message. And isn't it spectacular when you have an invitation to offer your messages? I had an opportunity to watch Carl Richards on a podcast yesterday, thinking about the messages he's sending out, just like all of us. Let's get out there and appreciate that we can shake hands, virtually or not. Thank you, Redmond, for that conversation that we had the other day. I very much appreciate understanding more about what you do and the people that you're helping and the staff within your office, staff, management, lawyers within your office that do many, many things to help many, many people. I'm Jacqueline Richards. And when you're looking for strategies for your mortgage money, man, you take that deep breath and call your mortgage honey.
Jacqueline, thank you so much. And next quick promo is if you need to have someone stand in to do your moment of what's going on in your life and what you do for a living, Mike Wazowski, reach out to him. And if the stars align and the timing goes well, he will do that for you and deliver the service. Master Tony Jennis. Spin the dial, bud.
Thank you very much, Bernie. I appreciate that. I really love what I do. I had a client yesterday, and he came in for a reading. I've had him before. It's great to see men, by the way, really looking at energy in a different way. So that has really changed in the last 15 years. Halfway through the conversation and giving him a reading, all of a sudden, I said, "Is there anything else that you need?" Any insight for? And he said, "No, not really. I think we've covered everything, and I really appreciate, you going through it." I says, "No, there's something else. There's something else." He says, No, there really isn't. He says, by any chance, is somebody trying to get a loan from you? He thought for a second. He says, "Oh, yeah, well, yeah, we do have a neighbor that gave us an offer or a deal that he has spent, some money on something and has made money on it." And I said, "Is it around 50,000?" He says, "Exactly. Yes, it's exactly 50,000." He says, "No, don't do it." "Really?" He says, "I was going to." I says, I don't even know how I pulled that out. It's like, because I'm getting really a rough feeling. I says, "Well, if you want to give the loan, that's fine, but you'll never see it again." That's all I'm being told. So you could use that for. He says, "Oh, wow, I never even thought you could do that kind of thing." Well, it's not so much doing it or no, but it's sometimes when people just think that it's not a big deal. I was going to do it. This is the kind of thing that you want to talk to somebody about that is connected to energy in some way. Just everything. He just figured it was a slam dunk, and his friend did it and made money. And I said, "Oh, by the way, the friend is just telling you that he made money. He's invested a lot more money. He just wants an alliance, so he doesn't think that if it doesn't work, then he's not the only one that was the fool that went ahead and did the deal." So I don't know your friend, so I apologize if this was too rough, but that's what Spirit is telling me, So so it's up to you, he says. And we were talking about his lifestyle, and he didn't want it to change. I says, you pull out 50 grand, it will change. So use that knowledge for whatever that you can at this point. So if you are going to be doing something big that might change your lifestyle, don't think it's just a slam dunk. It's just bring it up. Usually there's more to the story in your life. There's other things, kids and work and retirement and all this stuff. And then after that, you can go to Eric and get the logistic stuff done. But get a main path, something that is going to be in the right direction, sort of thing. At least then you know that your path is paved. Nothing worse than going into a path and then find out you're in the bush somewhere. So the road gets pretty rocky when it's not managed properly. And tonight is the night for the sound bathing. We are doing our sound bathing this evening from 7 p.m. to 9. If somebody still wants to jump in, you can register for this. If you have any things you haven't decided on, we're going to show you how to get insight out of your own body. We're going to show you a few techniques of how to go within, because all of the answers are within you. That's how I read this person. It was inside of him. And but you could do it. As a teacher, I'll show you how. And then you for the 2 hours, you'll walk away with some insight. Okay? So Tony Jennett from Higher Self, we are here to raise your spirits in any way. Back to you, Bernie. Oh, by the way, we did. I still got some business pending for Susan McGarry. She's getting us a couple of bottles of that new clear, and ongoing business, of course, with Eric and Penny Lee. There's some stuff I'm doing with her, and Dwight will be picking up some patties later this week.
Awesome, Tony. And so if you have your favorite hog that you like to ride, we're looking for someone that does work on them. And if you don't understand what the hog is, that's called a Harley. Yeah, pun intended.
I thought it was ribs.
Well, no, well, good luck eating the chrome. I wouldn't do it personally, but just anyhow, we're looking for someone who does work on motorcycles, and it's part, tis the season, right? And it is riding weather when it's not storming. So have them reach out to Penny Lee. And for myself, I connect people. I kind of cross thread, do a BAM, do a meeting with somebody, invite them to Knack for Business podcast sometimes. East Trade wins to speak. Jacqueline, again, thank you. I appreciate you doing that. And it's a lot of networking. Like for example, the $50,000 choice, what to do. I could point them to the commercial realtor I deal with, and he put them in as part of a syndication of a real estate asset. And having that continuous churn of money coming back in, revenue flow. That said, that's what the Property Wizard podcast is all about, and the Gentry Learning. It explains what the parts and components are. East Trade Winds, there's a YouTube link in there also. You can cross connect with us and see who's spoken. Jacqueline's iteration hasn't been posted just yet. It's called Catching Up. So hit run and churn. So I'm going to stop there because you know what? Eric has a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. It may sound dull inside accounting, but you know what? Eric finds that spice. And the idea is to stop you from eating the hot pepper later on and have it coming out the wrong way. So, Eric, tell us about your hot tamales.
Thank you, Bernie. I was about to give a discussion on a topic in tax today until yesterday. Yesterday, I got a notice, from our service that we adhere to that talked about problems that businesses have had in the courts in the last 6 months. And one of them I had in my office 6 days ago. So 6 days ago, someone behaved like this case that I'm going to tell you right now. And I warned them that he was going to get slammed. But it hasn't happened yet, but it's coming. And that is a discussion of expectation of profit. Most people think that if they're busy, they're in business. But that's not how the government looks at it. Expectation of profits has been requalified by the courts in the last 25 years. So 25 years ago, it was very draconian, and CRA would almost use it against anybody. So the courts have tempered it over time, and now we stand in a position where you are not responsible for what happens in the field, in the trade, in the industry. If you bona fide start a business that doesn't work. But there's Section 18 of the Income Tax Act, 18-1, which puts a little bit of a temper in that. Okay, a little bit of a hand of government, and that is if you never ever have a sale. And if you never ever have a sale, then the government would come in and say, all those expenses that you've had are not business expenses. And that's what happened here 6 days ago. And that's a discussion I had with someone who has a job, is selling a product, throughout Ontario. And he also dabbles in real estate. But he has no real estate sales for 2 years in a row. But he has real estate. He pays the real estate board. He pays his associations. He keeps tabs on real estate, but he's not sold anything. And I told her not to spend the money of the credit that he was getting from CRA because they were not going to allow it. He said that he's ready to fight it. And now I'm going to send them this piece of paper that I have here that I received yesterday of Mr. Lennox against the king. And if he fights it, he's going to find himself in the same place as Mr. Lennox. He's going to be out of luck. And he's going to have to either repay a credit or not be able to use those expenses. And this is a corporation. Okay, so this guy went as far as to incorporate. So he incorporated, he spent money, and I feel sorry for him because then COVID happened, and the ability to do the work that he wanted to do did not happen. So he stopped, but he claimed it off in his income. He filed his corporate tax return, and he said, I have a loss. Well, that has been clarified by the government. No, you were not in business. Now, in the real world, we have some sort of less or more of this, some more or less of this. In the real world, we had people who have either income from pensions or employment income, who then want to do multi-level marketing. They want to do multi-level marketing, and the multi-level marketing is $700 a year in sales, and then they have $500 of product, $3,000 of car, and $3,000 of home office expense, and lo and behold, the business lost $7,000, and lo and behold, they get this fat credit, the refund of tax because they pay tax through their job. Okay, that is it. That is going to be something that the government is coming up with, knights with lances towards you, because the CRA has been talking in roundtables about that for the last 10 years. And the government has always been hesitant about going against people that were marginal. But now the CRA has directives, as we see with this case here, to use Section 18.1, and now they're coming at it. And now the courts have said which section they can invoke, and that is the end of a lot of people that come here in tax season that tell me with a straight face that they're in business, that they want to write off their house and so on. And although we warn them here, if they insist, we will talk to them about not doing it. We will warn them about what's happening. But some people are stronger than us and insist on it. And this real estate guy is like that. So be careful. If you know anybody that is in marginal business, make them come out of the margins and be more operational. Work more on active income. Now, this is also a step in the division that the government has that came from since 2015, with the ability to weight I would say, the effort that you have in business. Most of us, I think all of us in this Zoom meeting, have what the government calls active income. That means you go to work. Wendy goes to work, she sells a house, she gets paid for commission on that. That's active income. But some of us here also have passive income. And passive income is when your money makes money, i.e. interest, dividends, capital gains. If you have that inside a corporation, they are going to come back 2 or 3 years later and take away the Canadian privately controlled corporations CCCP classification of your business. They're going to take that out and just call you a regular corporation. A regular corporation gets taxed at 38% plus provincial tax. A small business corporation gets taxed at 12.5%. And yesterday, I had here a client that decided for 3 years to only get paid dividends from the company that he was working at, the subcontracting at. Okay, so this guy has a corporation who's a small owner of a big company. He's a small shareholder of a big company, and that big company decided to minimize the record keeping and just give him dividends. And his company made $400,000 of dividends for 4 or 5 years in a row. So I told him about it. I told him about in 2019 that it was going to come back, and he said, no, we'll fight it when it comes back. It came back this week. And this week he owes $575,000 in tax. Right. So, sometimes don't play games with the tax department, because they have a higher ability to remember than you do. We tend to forget after a year. They keep remembering for decades. and they'll come back for this passive active income. And passive income, it does, like, let's say, I'm an accountant, and let's say my sales are $200,000 a year, but I also decide to play with the stock market and or cryptocurrency, and I have $300,000 of capital gains or $300,000 of investment income. So now my accounting sales have been dwarfed by that. Well, the government would say to me that I am no longer an accountant, that I am accidentally an accountant, and that I'm really an investor. And they will force my corporate tax return to read mostly as passive income. So I would have to pay 38% on $300,000. I haven't, those of you who are my clients haven't had that talk from me, because most of my clients are still doing 100% effort. It's not their money making money, it's they making money. But some of my older clients, by accident, went into that pool. By accident, I mean an engineering company with a building for 25 years, they retire and but they keep the building and they rent it. Now they have rental income and no other income. Rental income is passive income, and that gets taxed at 38%. And when you are in your 70s and you have to pay 38% tax, which 38% when you add provincial tax is around 50%. 50% tax on your income, on your rental income, that's excessive. So this summer they're selling the property because they can no longer sustain the tax. And that is a shame, because it was part of a planning for retirement. It was a retirement plan, but the government is very serious about not using corporations for tax planning. That's what when you hear ministers of finance saying that they're going to stop using corporations for tax planning, this is what they're talking about. It's that fine line between corporation activity and shareholder benefit. And rent is shareholder benefit, dividends is shareholder benefit, capital gains is shareholder benefit, and they come after that. So be careful about staying active. If you hire a relative in your business, a close relative like a child or a spouse, make sure they are paid and work in the business. Do not just have them as splitted income, because that will create again this division between shareholder benefit and active income, and that will push it into the 38% bracket. Now, that's what happened yesterday. The talk was going to be about the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant, because most people don't see the difference sometimes when they see what they get in front of them. Like, let's say if you have a bookkeeper that is doing your books on QuickBooks Online or something like that, the business comes here for me to do the year end with most of their activity done already, most of the bookkeeping done already. But decisions that the bookkeeper makes, or that the bookkeeper makes, will come back to haunt you. For instance, if you are on payroll in your company, and you have an accountant, you have a bookkeeper, but during the day-to-day, you have a bookkeeper. If you have payroll in your company, and you have a shareholder loan that the company owes you, and in November you decide that the payroll is not needed because I'll get it out of shareholder loan, and you ask your bookkeeper to reverse that entry, that payroll entry, the government will rule that is a payroll entry that's codified in stone, and you cannot change it. And that has gone. 3 people in Canada have tested that in the courts, and they have lost. You cannot undo some entries that you make in bookkeeping. They stay done, even after you come to the accountant at the end of the year. Because remember, you have already filed that payroll. Now you want to amend it to say that it wasn't payroll, it was repayment of loan. So be careful with things that your bookkeeper does, not because they are doing it wrong. It's because once they do it, they stay done. They cannot be undone. Now, an accountant, on the other hand, gets your books at the end of the year. And we tend to measure and we tend to test. Okay, measure and test. That's the role of an accountant. So we would compare, your income with your expenses. That's one of all the steps we have, right? We'll compare your expenses, and we will compare it to national data banks, and we will compare it to Industry Canada returns. So if a contractor in Ottawa makes $500,000 a year in construction contract sales, and at the end of the year they have $600,000 in expenses, and they have $100,000 loss, and you file that goes when you file that, whether it's personal tax or corporate tax, it goes through a sift that gets compared to national statistics for contractors. So they take a contractor and they say, well, where is he? In Ottawa. What's the population of Ottawa? And they say, well, it's 1 million people. They'll compare it to any place, any contractor in Canada with a place with a population of 1 million. And they'll say, oh, how many contractors are in that population? They'll divide it. And they'll say, well, on the average, in Canada, a contractor spends $25,000 in advertising. How come this guy is spending $75,000 in advertising? Let's send them a letter. On the average, in Canada, a contractor spends $15,000 in automobile expenses. This guy spends $30,000. Let's send them a letter. And what happens, and it will happen to some of you here, is that in July, you will get a letter from the government that says, we need to know more about these expenses. That's step number 1 to disqualification. So when you get that letter, go to your accountant, because you need to come up with a plan of action on how you're going to justify those expenses. That is not something that a bookkeeper does. That is something that an accountant does. And sometimes the business has those expenses. Now, if you have had those expenses because you have taken the money out in salary, the government is happy with you, because you have shifted 12.5% taxation for 38.5 for 40% taxation in your personal tax return in payroll. So sometimes if you take it all in payroll, they don't mind. But if you don't take it out in payroll, you have expenses rather than payroll, and you don't take any money out of the business, that is problematic. Now, the other thing that they look at is, again, shareholder benefit. How you're spending money, how you're driving, how you're paying your employees, how you're paying yourself. And I tell people who buy businesses this: if you buy a business where it's losing money, but the owner is making $300,000 in salary, buy it. If you buy a business where the owner is making $30,000 in salary and the business is making $100,000 in income, don't buy it, because the owner is subsidizing that profit. So you have to look always at the owner. I'd rather have a rich fat owner and a not so rich fat business than a fat business and a poor owner, because that is not Mother Nature. Mother Nature is that we live through the fruits of our work. And when someone is not living through the fruits of their work and they have to be subsidized by their spouse who has a job and all that kind of stuff, but their business is making money, I think stay away from it. Do not, do not, do not buy it. Now, the fact that they compare you to other people is good, because you can go to Industry Canada and you can get those statistics yourself and say, okay, I'm going to measure my company on national trends, and I'm going to report based on national uh, uh, um, terms. So, it's sometimes difficult to deal with the government. So our job is to make sure that they have an easy time reading our reports. And finally, the big difference between us and bookkeepers is that we are compliance experts and bookkeepers are report experts. They do reports. We make sure you comply with the government. And you will never, I hope none of you hear that in your accountant's office. But if you go to an accountant's office, if you have an accountant who says to you, this is no longer part of the ITA, we're going to have to go to the civil courts or the criminal courts, that is the end of your business. Because if the government is pushing you that way, leave the country. Leave the country before you get charged with anything, because that is not what an accountant will defend you on. An accountant will defend you on the Income Tax Act of Canada and not on the criminal side of activity. And sometimes people, if you read the Citizen on the weekend, there was Paragon Investments in Toronto who got arrested in Buffalo. Okay, so you know that case? Well, Paragon probably had an accountant, but the accountant it stops at the moment that it becomes, part of a criminal case. And a part of a criminal case is sometimes when the CRA does not have the resources to go after you. So they send it over to justice, and justice sends, or to the RCMP, and the RCMP sends it to justice. I have one case like that right now in my office. And it happened 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they got a questionnaire from an external CRA, an external to the country CRA person. So in an embassy somewhere in the world, some CRA person sent this letter to this company and 5 people who work in it. And that letter is going to be, the first thing I told them is, I will respond to the letter, because it was a questionnaire. I said, I will respond to the letter, but I need to have the name of your lawyer, because this is going to be criminal code stuff. So, and I have one case like that. So, but he pays good fees. He knows the difference between accounting, bookkeeping, and law. Who cares? If he wants to make decisions like that, that's his business. But I drew the line and I said, no, this is where we stop and this is where the lawyer starts. And, he's continuing with it. And we haven't heard anything from CRA. We haven't heard anything in 2 years, which means they're building a really fat case. And we know that because when we call CRA for balances on his account, they tell us that his account is closed, it's frozen. They cannot access it. That's because it's no longer a CRA. That it's now somewhere else. It's probably at justice. It's probably at the police. It's probably at something. Now, what these guys have in common is that they donate heavily to charities. Because if I donate $1 million to a charity and I have $15,000 of net income, I can do that 1 year because, I have savings, they could do that 1 year. But if I continually do that, always to the same charities, the government is going to look at it and say, there's something here. And if those charities are worldwide, are charities that are worldwide, the government then will send it to embassies around the world who will look at the charities in those countries. That's what's happened here. So I'll keep you informed on that, because that is going to be another S that hits the fan, in about a year and a half. In the meantime, we're doing his taxes, but we cannot see anything on his account. Now, and finally, what I am going to tell you about is what's happening here. We are merging this summer with 8 other offices across Canada. We will be called CA Pros, and we will continue to offer the same friendly service we offer here, but we will have resources behind us that are 8 times bigger than we are. Any questions?
Geez, Eric, I don't know. I have an extra $1 million. Where should I park it? That's never been my problem. I think I'm good. Like I said, you always have something, it ain't boring in your space. Are there any
Yes.
questions for Eric? Sorry, folks, but anybody got $1 million? They're looking where to shake the tree. Eric, it is fascinating. So if an embassy is reaching out to you, you definitely know as part of the government.
Mhm.
Yes.
You've hit the winner.
Yes.
So if someone's starting out a business and they're trying to make sure they're doing right, and understanding that maybe the first year or second year will have a more loss than profit
Yes.
eventually, but as long as they're doing sales transactions, they should be good then.
Yes. And as long as they have operational expenses, like this guy had home office expense, car expense, and that's it, and advertising, I think. So
There
he
are-
had,
Yeah.
right, he didn't have any operational expenses. If he had a secretary, if he had payroll, they would have not come after him.
Yeah, but
So-
yeah, there are people that are actually spreading that. I heard that a number of months ago, where someone says if you are paying high taxes, just open up a business. You don't have to do any sales. Just have a registered business, and that way you can collect all of your portion of your home and all the expenses, and then you get money back. That's really bad advice. It doesn't even feel right.
If you hear that, you say to them, "There's a guy in my group called Redmond. You need to get to know him."
Yeah.
because they're going to come at you, and it's not going to be through the Income Tax Act.
Yeah. That's where you got to renew your will. It may go that far. Wow. But yeah.
Now, in accounting, we defend people on a difference of opinion. So, the CRA says that, you spend so much, and we say, no, it was so much. And sometimes, we want to argue with them because we think we're right. But it's based on, on the Income Tax Act, and based on the rights that we have under the Income Tax Act.
Yeah.
It's not saying to the CRA, I spent all this money, but and I don't have any sales, but too bad, so sad. Here's my return. You can't do that.
Yeah. My situation's in reverse. I have all these sales and I have no expenses.
They love you.
That's I know it makes no sense, but I have 3 companies. They pay all the expenses, and this other one, it has sales, but I can't really. I have no expenses, so it's hard to justify that. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. We'll have to talk about that.
We will tell you that there's no such thing as a sale without expenses, because a sale takes energy. It's that you are not able to quantify the energy. That's different.
Maybe.
But a sale takes energy.
Yeah, because they have one office, and you can only
Right.
you can't double dip. You can't. If one company is taking 20% of your office, you can't have the other company do the same thing, because then it's double dipping, and eventually you'll have 120% expenses on the home.
So Eric,
Yes.
Eric, in that particular situation, if Tony has, let's say a Zoom account with a Phoenix, right?
Yep.
And he spends, I'm just going to random number, $100. I know it's not $100 a month, but $100 a month. But he uses it for another business. would it make sense then for his first business that is paying the account as an expense to bill the second business that's
Well, you
basically
can
paying
allocate
rent?
you can allocate income, right? You can say, you know, I spend $100 a month, but now I have this other business that also using Zoom. So, you know, I'm going to take 15% of the expense and give it to the other business, and give 85% in the original business. You can do that
So is
as
that an
long as the
invoice?
both. You don't have to even have an invoice. You just split the cost,
Oh, oh,
right? Because you're the owner of both.
yeah.
Right? An invoice is more appropriate when you have different ownership on one side than the other. Okay, so Tony is partners with other people in the Zoom business, and he's the only owner of this other company.
Hmm.
Right? That's where you have to make sure that it all equals 100, because the other 5 people that he's partners with could be taking, you know, 20%, 25% each. 25%
Yeah.
times 5 is 125.
Right. Right.
That's the way you have to be careful.
That's
But
true.
most of the time, you know, when you're the owner of one side and the owner of the other, you just allocate. But you have to leave paperwork behind. You have to leave paperwork behind.
Okay.
Always document.
If they're both incorporated, you could make it more legalistic and write, you know, a covenant, a loan covenant, and say, you know, you owe me X amount of money, you know, for using my house, and, you know, don't pay me now, put it in shareholder loans, pay me when you have the money. You can do that. But we'll talk about it, Tony.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But you know, I told you that there's no such thing as a sale without energy.
Yeah.
Eric, that's just that's
It
profound, because
definitely.
a lot of people don't take numbers and bring it to a reality, right? Nothing is free ever, truly,
Right.
right? Something has to give up the ghost to make that happen.
Yes.
And I'm going to close this out with a quote for the day. If everything around you seems dark, look again. You might be the light. And that's from Rumi.